Hey, thanks for joining Under the Hood with Racers and Rods. We have a great special guest today. His name is Mike Narks. He is the owner of Narcoleptic Customs, and he also is the creator of DragNDrive.com. If you're not familiar with the Drag and Drive drag race scene, it is huge. So we're going to talk to Mike about his background, how he got into cars, and we're going to learn everything we need to know about DragNDrive.com. So stay tuned. Here he comes. All right, welcome everybody to Under the Hood with Racers and Rods. Welcome, Mike Narks from DragNDrive.com.
Nice to be here. Yeah, man.
Appreciate it.
DragNDrive.com, Narcoleptic Customs.
Why don't we start with just kind of give us a background, who you are, where you come from, maybe just how you got into the car scene, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. So I turned 41 back in March and have been a car guy literally as long as I can remember. So my mom every week would allow my little brother and I to buy a Hot Wheels. That was our thing. Single mom, not a lot of help from dad. He was a great dad, but just not a lot of help there monetarily. So every week when she would get paid, she'd let us buy, something that we wanted. And that was always a Hot Wheels. So we had hundreds and hundreds of Hot Wheels growing up. And that never stopped. Every time I would come visit my grandmother here in Northwest Arkansas, she would take me to any car show I wanted to go to if there was one that we found. And so literally have been a car guy since as far back as I can remember. Motorcycles, dirt bikes.
Sounds like we have a lot in common then. I remember going to World of Wheels car shows. I was originally from Baltimore. I remember a World of Wheels car show with my sister and brother-in-law, it wasn't my brother-in-law at the time, in probably 1974 or 5. And that was probably the first car show I've ever been to. So how did your businesses come about? How did you get into building hot rods?
Man. So in high school, a buddy of mine, Aaron Mick, who now works at Comp Cams and is my go-to guy for when we order valve train stuff. Him and I were car guys in high school. He had a Fox Body Mustang and I had a V8 S10 Blazer. And so we would race and things like that. Well, our plan was he was going to go to school in Jonesboro. I was going to move to Northwest Arkansas and go to the University of Arkansas. And then when we would get done, we would open a shop. Well, that didn't happen. But during that time, being such car guys, my younger brother, Steven, started working at Circuit City and became a wiring guru in my mind, to be honest, at Circuit City. So having all of that and that knowledge of, because I studied business, while I was in college. I didn't graduate, but while I was in college, and then I started selling cars. And so cars were everything. And then my brother graduated high school and moved here. And we just started, Instagram was just growing then. It's about 6 or 8 years ago. And Instagram was just really starting to kick off. And so he didn't like Facebook because at that point you saw everybody's stuff, where on Instagram, you only saw car stuff. So we really started posting, and his shop teacher or the manager at Circuit City used to call him Narcoleptic. And so obviously if you're going to start wrenching on stuff, and at that point he was single, no kids, had expendable income, and was buying parts all the time. So we technically started Narcoleptic because of a tax savings. If he was going to spend the kind of money he was spending, I wanted him to see some kind of tax benefits. And really, that's where it started. And now he is full-time Narcoleptic, and he turns wrenches on cool stuff every day. We don't do any maintenance or anything like that. So pretty crazy.
But you're not full-time with him. Yeah. No,
there's just not. We don't want to take on too many projects. And with him turning wrenches, it's just not enough income to support both of us. Because I'm not, if people have watched the videos in the past, I'm not much of a wrench turner. So it takes me a little longer than everybody else, Yeah. So I got to watch a YouTube video. Then you end up watching 2 or 3 YouTube videos. And so anyway, so he's doing that. And like right now we've got a 65 International truck. That's a decommissioned military truck, 4-door. He's put a 4-wheel drive axles underneath it, a late model LT62 from an Escalade, and 8-speed in it. I mean, it's just this, his brain works differently than mine. I can get us the business. I can edit videos. I can tell people. I can do the book side of stuff, and he handles getting it done.
Right. Anyways, and that's kind of our philosophy too, because again, I'm not a fabricator. I'm not a wrench guy. But I love all of that, and I love cars. So we search out those guys that are out there building those sort of hot rods and customs
Yep.
and things, and bring that side of it and say, you just build it and I'll film it. And I'll
Yep.
put it out on the internet, and we'll get your name out there, and we'll get it out there on what you're building.
What's great about a guy like you that enjoys doing that side of stuff, people at home, you can go by and record an update weekly. You can go by twice a week, get 30, 40 seconds of video or 2 minutes of video. And then they get to watch a 10-minute build of something. And that guy would have never been able to do that, but you were able to do that. So that's pretty fun. I enjoy that a bunch.
So you mentioned off camera, we've talked a few times, and let's just get into it, I guess, a little bit and talk about.
Yep.
I know you're very proud of your project with your grandfather's truck. So
yeah. Stanley is what we call our 66 C10 truck, and it's just named after him. How original, But he passed away in 2016, and he actually purchased that truck in 1967 with 9,000 miles on it and drove it everywhere. I mean, it's been to 3 corners of the U.S. and there it is there. That's back probably. So we've been in our house now 9 years, and that was before we moved. But cool story on this. This was actually getting ready for the 2012 Hot Rod Power Tour was coming within about 40 miles of us. So I had to get the truck ready. I completely rewired it in about 2 weeks. Front to back, literally pulled everything out, all new harness and everything like that. So
wow.
This picture here is the first time that the truck had been drivable on its own in at least 8 or 9 years.
Wow,
so
very cool.
Pretty awesome. I had done the scallops and the black roof and everything. This is what the truck looks like now. I know that.
So I put them in the right. I put them in the right order. You didn't give me an order, but I looked at them and I guessed right. So
yep.
That's good.
The reason it is patina, we didn't necessarily choose to do that, but you had seen it was all the rusty color primer. I had a lady in a Honda Civic gun it to get out, and in her gap, and then literally, I guess, got scared. Well, I gunned it to go with her because the gap was wide enough for both of us, and she stopped and I didn't. So we needed a new front end. So the hood, actually, if you'll back up just real quick, we don't want to talk about the turbo yet. The hood there is from one of my uncle's vehicle, was my Uncle 65, and it was actually in my mom's dad. The truck belonged to my dad's stepdad, but my mom's dad, his lean-to. So the corner of the windshield there is just literally absolutely rotted completely off. You had to lift the hood and then reach in and lift the hinge. So it was barely on, but yeah, that the truck there had the LS in it, but just barely. I mean, we'd only had it, I think I probably got 200 or 300 miles on it in that picture. It's a bone stock 4.8 with a 4L80 trans in that one. And then the next one you were showing there. Yeah, this one, this is this past summer, 2021 summer, and I had built a full turbo kit in the shop. There's a whole video series on just building the turbo kit and installing the turbo and everything, cam and all that stuff on the truck to the same stock bottom end 4.8. We put comp cams valve train in it, like I was saying earlier, from my buddy Aaron, and then VS Racing 7875 $400 turbo back then. And built the entire exhaust and everything, decapped factory truck injectors, all that kind of stuff. And the wheels are a Nissan Titan 18-inch steel wheel, so it's got a little better look. And then these caps are actually from like a 3/4 or 1-ton Chevrolet or GMC truck, like you see here, but like a Suburban that would have had those. Are very, very rare 12-inch dish. A lot of those are 10-inch, and so those are 12-inch, and they just really make the wheel look cool. And an 18-inch trim ring from a Camaro. So
cool. It's got a little bit of everything in it then.
Yeah. My grandfather, like I said, drove that truck from 67 to 92. He was a decorated Korean War veteran. Appreciate his service there. Absolutely. And jumped out of airplanes. A total badass.
Wow.
Like I spoke at his funeral, and that was the only word. When I found out that he had passed, it was the only word that came to mind was just badass, and that's
right.
That's what he was. One of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, but you could always just tell you didn't want to wrestle with him,
No, you didn't want to mess with him. Yeah, my father was like that. My father was a Navy man, and then he was a cook in the Navy. It wasn't like he jumped out of airplanes, but he was a firefighter for 30 years in Baltimore County. So I agree. Like he was he was my badass.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's awesome.
He dailied the truck to 92, and then my grandmother bought him a 94. No, she bought him an 89 Ford truck. And so he parked it and it sat for 2 years. Then I turned 14 in 95 and begged, can I please have the truck? And he said, no. Yeah. He's like, man, I've had that truck for a long time, and at that time you don't understand as a 14-year-old, your connection to vehicles and things like that. And, he's like, no. And I was like, well, can we at least get it running and we'll take it to some car shows and stuff like that. So I mowed yards and worked at the golf course for 2 summers and put a windshield in it and painted it gray primer. We had to rebuild the entire front end. It was just a total mess. It was absolutely undrivable when I first started working on it. So we did all that, and I did all that with my little bit of money, and then I drove it to high school for about 8 months.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Well, at least at 14, you recognized that it was something that needed to be running and you needed to be driving it. So that says something for you.
Well, I appreciate that. And one other thing too is like that was the era of like the 67 to 72 truck. And so if you put this truck next to a 67 to 72, this truck was ugly. It was hated. People didn't want them. But I knew from all the magazines that it was a C10 underneath. It's a 66. So it has like the A-arms and things like that. So I was like, I can get all the lowering stuff for it. And then these here, obviously my wife and 2 daughters. So they're way bigger. We're going to redo that shot next summer.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I saw this. I saw this shot and I thought that was very cool. Yeah.
You can tell it's a long time ago because I'm about 30 pounds lighter.
Yeah. Well, I hear you there. So
that's what happened.
Yep. Well, that's cool. That's a cool story.
That little one.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that little one that's sitting next to me. She went on the drag and drive with me in April in this truck, and we made it 530 miles. And she was awake every hour I was awake, and she didn't sleep at all. It was awesome. So she's hooked. She's my car girl. The other one, she's not so much into cars, but her and her mom enjoy shopping and doing all that fun stuff together.
That's
so
cool.
It's one of those things.
Awesome. Well, that's cool. That's a very cool story.
Yeah, that truck has been around. Well, so I'll turn 42 in March, and I got that truck when I turned 16. So I have technically had it longer than he has. He put a lot more miles on it than what I did.
Well, now that we're back and I can see all of your background there, let's talk about drag and drive addiction.
Yeah, for sure. So it is my passion. To say that I live, sleep, and breathe drag and drive is an understatement. Earlier,
and if anybody's watched your podcast, your videos, anything you do on YouTube or on Facebook, they will agree with that.
Yeah, so. It's the coolest part about, well, just like you go into a car show, just like you covering any car thing. There's so many cool stories that come along with this type of racing because you're in your car. A lot of times, let's give a good example of, let's say 30% of the car show guys drive their car to Cars and Coffee. They take it to a car show 2 or 3 times a year. That's a big event that's probably an hour away, right? It's always there's some event that's just far enough to where they're like, hey, I feel like it's a street car. Well, like this car here, right here, this is Rick Sankey's Honk If Parts Fall Off. It's an 850 car. It's been 830s, and he drives it all the time. Okay, I mean that car is nuts. But that's what I love about these cars is it forces you to be in that car and build it to that next level of being able to handle 1,000 street miles. Even if you do a regional event, which is what's going to really explode in 2023, I think that's what's going to blow people's mind is you'll start seeing these everywhere because there'll be race on Friday night, drive race on Saturday, drive race on Sunday. I think we'll see a lot of that type stuff pop up because it's going to bring so many more people into the community. There are now huge companies that are seeing the benefits of the drag and drive community and how it's growing and what fun it is for everybody. Like Summit Racing is a big part. They completely sponsor one of the Midwest Drags, and then they completely sponsor, they're the title sponsor, of both Midwest Drags and Autocross Week.
Right.
Drag and drive addiction. I was doing a ton of drag and drive coverage on the Narcoleptic channel, and it was really becoming overwhelming on the channel. And so I felt that it was not as fair to the people that subscribe to that channel that want to watch our builds. They want to see what we're working on in the shop. And I have so much time. I was spending so much time talking to people. We have over 100 podcasts, and I think 60 of them are revolving around drag and drive competitors and cars and things like that. So I was just spending so much time on it. I had to start its own channel. It had to become its own thing. And so partnered with a guy named Hyde who owned dragonddrive.com. And have taken that website from a single page that only had the list of drag and drive events to now we have about 40 or 50 different pages within that site. We have racer lists for the top 100 for 2022, 2021. We have all of the historical data for Hot Rod Drag Week, all of the historical data for Rocky Mountain Race Week, all the historical data for Midwest Drags, and obviously beginning Sick Week only has 1 year, but we have all that data as well. So I take that data and I build these huge lists, and it sounds really nerdy and boring, but what it does is it really it creates camaraderie between the racers. So we have 100 racers on the top 100 list. Well, we're going into Drag Week, starting. I'll leave tomorrow, starts Monday. Everybody that has raced in a national drag and drive event right now, their number could be bumped. They could be number 97 and they not even be on the list when Drag Week is done. They can be number 67 and not be on the list when Drag Week is done.
Well, and that's what amazed me, that number one, the amount of data that you've been able to collect and how you've gotten all of that back data is amazing.
I appreciate that. And I'll tell you this much, it has not been easy. It is getting easier now because people see my enthusiasm for it, obviously, and they see where racers, announcers, promoters can use all this stuff. Sick Week's going to be the fastest one. It's what Midwest Drags wanted to do with the 10-5 rule. February in Florida. I mean, who's going to argue with that kind of time? Can you imagine 350 racers, 250 Sick Award? You're going to have 600 cars cruising, cool cars cruising in Florida. And I hope we hit South Georgia. I would think we will, just because of the history of that track and how fast it is.
I thought he had mentioned that it was basically going to be the same tracks, but didn't quite come out and say that. But I do know, like we had talked about also, that it's going to start in Orlando this year and not in Bradenton.
One thing we didn't mention about Narcoleptic is our Narcs cart, which is a Grand Marquis.
I had that on my list. I was going to ask you about that.
Yep. And the reason we built that car was because all four of us wouldn't fit in the old truck. And everybody have a seatbelt, even though we took the picture like that one time. The wife won't let us ride like that. So she's out. So we needed something that was fun and something you don't care about, built for burnouts. And so the Narcs cart. Well,
what is the Narcs cart? What was it? What did it start as?
It was a really nice cream puff 03 Grand Marquis.
Okay.
Mercury Grand Marquis that had literally never been smoked in. I mean, this old man, 85 years old, owned it, and he had ran into the back of a Jeep Wrangler, and it had punched the front. Well, it didn't damage the radiator or anything. So, he kept driving it, and his children came in one day and saw what he was doing, and they're like, Dad, you got to quit driving. You're too old. So I found it cheap, and I shopped for months, because if you're going to cut a car's roof off, this is a learning lesson, okay? Learning lesson for people that are paying attention. If you're going to cut a car's roof off, you either need to have at least some kind of hoop built already so the car doesn't sag at all, okay?
Right.
So you either need to build a hoop, and then you can cut the roof off, or you need to have a full frame car, so you need like a Caprice, an old Caprice, or a Grand Marquis up until 2014, whenever they got rid of them. So we just start scouring. I had looked at Copart. I had looked at all the insurance auctions. I had just scoured Marketplace 300 miles away trying to find stuff, and came across this car for $900. Brought it home, taught my kids what a 13 millimeter wrench does on a door handle or on a door hinge. And we took the doors off the first night we were there, and then buddies
And
come over that.
anything that can be unbolted.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we completely gutted the car, cut the roof off. I still have the rear fenders. I wanted to learn to build cages better. My brother's, again, a great fabricator and can do all that stuff, but I needed to learn in case I needed to do something on my own. So he walked me through a couple bins, how to measure and stuff like that. And then every time I got kind of a whim, I was like, let's build another bar, or let's put something else in. And so then it's just been a matter of learning and adding stuff here and there. And so, of course, we put a set of gears in it. Grand Marquis hate 31-inch tall tires. If you aren't familiar with that, they hate them. It's a 273 or 308 gear will not drive right with a 31-inch tall tire. So somebody donated a 430 rear gear, which is perfect for burnouts. And then we added a turbo. We added some nitrous. The car probably makes less power now than what it did before the turbo and nitrous. And then we put 10,000 miles on it in 8 months, going to events and just having fun. I mean, I daily drove it. Every time it was sunny outside, I drove it. And it was the most mileage I had put on a car in a year in like 15 years. So we just had a blast in it. We went everywhere.
So what's next? What's next with Drag and Drive? Where does dragandrive.com go from here?
Man.
What's the?
So
I know you're busy.
Yeah, well, that's the understatement of the week. We just keep grinding really for the next. So for Drag Week, which I don't know if this will be out during or after, but for Drag Week, my goal is to post another 70 videos to the YouTube channel, another 100 videos or posts to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that kind of each. You know, I mean, we like to tell as many stories as we can. You know, I'll have more than 900 Instagram posts on the channel here on Drag and Drive on Instagram before I even leave for Drag Week. So it'll be no problem hitting 100. So if you want something to watch and you want fun videos and goofy stuff, that's where you go, as Drag and Drive. Yeah. So my end goal with it is to be full-time. I mean, that's my 100% goal, is to be able to bring stories and news and entertainment from the Drag and Drive community to everybody. I'd love to be able to do that all the time. I have a day job now. I have a wife and 2 kids. I have, Narcoleptic Customs. I have my own car projects, all that kind of stuff. If I had the 40 hours I have at work a week to work on that, I could have more time with the family, and I could have more time, working on this. And even really the hardest part is, like, I want people to understand I'm not saying this because it sounds cool. I literally have probably 100 hours in statistical data gathering, sorting, manipulation. All that kind of. How do I let that person that isn't Tom Bailey? Sadly, Tom Bailey gets a ton of attention, and he should. He drives the fastest car in Drag and Drive history. He should get a lot of attention. But Bill Spangler's one of those guys. Frizzell's one of those guys. That guy's done a bunch of these events, and so has Tom Bailey. But when 1320 is around or another big channel is around, they want to cover the really fast guys because that's what people at home want to watch.
Sure.
Where the people in our community that are true car guys, that are truly there to see what fun is, you can tell that. I mean, there's a lot of guys that will watch this that have built a 10-second car that are like, oh, well, I didn't know there were 1,400 racers over 12 years to have raced in a 10-second class. Some of those cars run like 14 seconds number. And they do it for fun. Not everybody's running a 10.0 all the time. So I think that is what will really change the game for the future of dragandrive.com, and then also for the future of the Drag and Drive community, is we'll be able to tell those stories. We'll be able to get that stuff out as the historical data from these events become available.
Well, and in the larger scale, it's interesting because even though Drag and Drive has been around for a while, right now in the past year, 2 years is when, since COVID probably, it's exploding. And like you said, the amount of smaller regional 2-day, 3-day type races and things are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
One of the biggest things that people need to understand too, if this is one of the first times they're hearing about these kind of events, is there's a ton of loyalty in this. Like the Rocky Mountain Race Week team, if you raced in Race Week 2022, you are eligible for early registration for Race Week 2023 when it opens. Okay.
Right.
Now, there's 300 cars, 280 cars that started, 264 cars, that started Race Week. Let's say not all of those come back. Well, for 2021 to 2022, there was like 180 cars that pre-registered or early registered that were returning racers. So 60 something percent. You start looking at that only leaves 40% open. So you have 100 car field, and as big as these National Drag and Drive events are getting, you're literally trying to put 3,000 people that are sitting in front of their computer. You're trying to put them into a 100-car spot. And people get mad and they get frustrated and things like that. So I think that's one of the other benefits to what we can do. And Tom is doing a great job of this with Sick Week. He is also the fastest 3 cars from Midwest Drags, Rocky Mountain 1.0.
Right. I was going to mention that. Right. Yep. That they're automatically in.
They're not automatically in. They get a chance for early registration.
Oh, they get right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Well, so, but
how many miles does it take to prove that your car is a street car? 50's too little. That's a town car, as my brother calls it.
Yeah.
50 miles to the track, 50 miles round trip to the track and back. That's nothing. Is it 100 miles? Maybe. Is it 75 or 80? Probably. We're working out some technical stuff for what we would consider rules for legitimate drag and drives. As people will move forward, we want to help them set up their events. Because like if you go 30 miles, that's a true street cruise. 50 miles probably isn't enough. If you go 80, you've proven you've got a street car. So that's part of my other trip with drag.
Yeah, I don't think if you told me that I had to get in Tom Bailey's Sick 2.0 and ride 2 hours in it, I would do it because of the car, but it's not going to be very comfortable. And it's and he puts more than 2 hours worth of seat time in it every night. Yeah. So
it's crazy. 150 miles. You're like, dude, that's 3 hours of driving at the most. That's it. But it's not. It's like it took Justin and I. We left Orlando, and I mean, the deal. Orlando was rained out for 22, so we left Orlando 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. After we spent an hour, 2 hours there talking to people and having fun. So we leave. It took us another 6 hours and tons of parking lot wrenching to get to the next spot. So every time you stop at a gas station, there's 5 more race car friends that are sitting over there, and you go talk to them. Hey man, what's the story on this car? Oh man, how cool. What motor's in that? Oh, and then they start talking about it and you're lost. You've got 20 minutes tied up in a conversation with them. That's another thing I'm wanting to use to grow the dragandrive.com stuff too, as well as to become an announcer at some of these, maybe in the pits or in the lanes announcer, talking to people while the track is down, because now people are expecting a live stream. People are expecting to see these cars go down. Well, think about the last time you watched a live stream when it's the tractor just going up and down the drag strip. You're like, oh my God, okay, I'm done. I'll come back later. Where if you have maybe 2 or 3 announcers, you have one guy in the tower that's telling what's going on. He can keep everybody abreast of, hey, we're going to be back in 20 minutes, things like that. Yeah. Somebody like me, I mean, here I am. I'm literally putting this out there for people watching this. If you have an event and you want somebody to talk to racers and we have a way to live stream that stuff, I'm in. I'll do it from my phone if you want me to. I don't care.
Yeah.
Just, show me how to get on to where we can patch it into the live stream people are watching already. Because we will, as a group of people, grow our own relevance here. Back to regional events. I think once we see those guys, that event style grow and people see that they can do it, maybe Devin and his group will do 2 events a year. So now you've got 200 people. Will we use those small events like Tom is doing with Sick Week 23 to feed the larger events? Hey, if you're a fast class, if you're a class winner or you're class 1 and 2, you get early registration. Well, now suddenly Sick Week, Rocky Mountain, Race Week, Midwest Drags, nobody has to worry about filling their spots because they're going to get it from those small events. and allowing those racers to early register.
Right, right.
You know,
Almost
will
like
we, will we,
a
like
minor league,
yeah, yep,
organization filling, and
yep,
quite honestly, that would be great. I would love to see
yep,
maybe even a couple times a year, just because we can. And here in Florida, I mean, other than this is the rainy season and it rains every day, but Bradenton, Orlando, Gainesville,
yep.
sign me up for that. And
Well, and regional stuff will eventually work down. National will be 4 and 5 days events. Regional will
mhm,
be 3 and 4, maybe depending on the mileage, and then you'll have a local event that'll be 1 and 2 day events. Because a 2 day event, you could race within a test and tune on Friday night, which is what we did in April. We were it rained out sadly, but you could race on a Friday night, drive a 200-mile loop between then and Sunday morning, and get in with some bracket class. 50 cars is a ton of cars for a drag and drive event.
oh yeah,
It
yeah,
If you put $200 a car, you get with the track, you're like, hey, what's it take for us to lock in 50 spots for this, and we're just going to sell 50 spaces. So you take that race, the track owner's like, hey, it is what it is. You're going to have these class calls. We're going to give you 3 class calls, and then you're going to work in around everybody else. Man, that can happen a lot, and that can happen 2 or 3 times a year for sure. That can happen 2 or 3 times a winter in Florida. There's a lot of that I think will come up. We'll have some guys that do it really well. We'll have some guys that are horrible at it, and they won't ever do them again. But the guys that do it well, those events will grow. I mean, NHRA all the time. NHRA has 24 national events a year. We literally have 5 national events. Now, our events are a week long, but there are 5, and we'll end the year with somewhere around 2,800 total drag and drive racers, total of every event entered in everything, regional, 8th mile, national level events, everything.
right, right.
So, I mean,
So there's a lot of room for growth there. There's a lot of room for a lot
yeah,
more people, and we
yep,
just needs to be organized. And I think it's
yep.
definitely moving in the right
Oh,
direction.
yeah.
I think, hearing what Tom says online, and the other
Hmm.
people that are involved with this, having discussions with each other, finding out what
Yep,
works and what doesn't, going with the same rules
yep,
and some of the same, the rowdy radio class they're adding,
yeah.
where,
Oh, I love it.
it's going to be pretty much across the board,
Yeah,
that, you're going to be able to run any of
yep.
those events. So,
And that's what Hyde at Midwest Drag talks about all the time. He's like, to really grow the sport and make it a series almost, which where people want to attend each one to get, not saying we're going to do a points system or anything like that, but to where people will want to be on these lists, where people will want to do all this stuff. You have to have some common stuff across the rules. One guy can't build a car only for drag week and then not be involved in anything in race week or Rocky Mountain because his car doesn't class right. So he doesn't need to automatically go to unlimited, even though he's a 7-second car. He may be like a
right,
780 or 810
right.
car in drag and drive form. Well, he's not competitive in unlimited, so he's like, I'm not going to do that, but I'll go over here to drag week. But you don't want to have a specific car built. So I think we'll see some of that. We'll see some similarities. Not everybody's going to do it the same, but some similarities for sure. And then Matt Frost and Jared Holt are
Hmm.
talking about they are teaming up. They're not talking about it anymore. They are teaming up to produce what is King of the Open Road, which is what Jared has been wanting to do for a long time, which is weekend style drag and drive events across the country. And they do. I don't know what 2023 will be. I feel like you could do 4 or 6 and not have any struggles competing with any other events. I think as the sport grows and as we see that kind of stuff, Jared Holt and Matt Frost with the Rocky Mountain Race Week team are 2 of the best event planners and promoters that I've ever been involved with drag and drive stuff for sure, and probably in any event they choose to be with. So when those guys team up, things are going to happen. It's going to be big. And then sponsors take note, big sponsors, Summit Racing, Jegs, all that kind of stuff will take note of that. Hey, look at how successful these guys are. Look at the class of car they're getting out. Look at the camaraderie that's building from
Right,
these drag and
right.
drive events. How do we get involved? How can we give you some money to produce more events to bring more people in to buy parts from our catalog, or we'll put.
Well, anybody that's had, even if it's a street car, and has been down a drag strip. Funny enough, I actually have the logo on my shirt here. Some friends of mine from the Southern Mopar crew, mostly newer,
Yep.
younger crowd with
Modern Mopar
the
muscle.
modern Hellcats and the Demons and that
Yep.
sort of thing. But a few of them have a few lady racers, and one of them, made her first pass a few months ago at Bradenton, and made 2 passes and came back, and I said, so how was it? She said, it was the most exciting thing I've ever done, and how do I go faster?
Yeah, 100%. And then so that group of friends goes, hey, you need to order this part. Or they have the part. They're like, well, I'm upgrading blowers on my Hellcat. You need to buy my blower.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Trade them,
And
swap
then
them
she
down.
goes
Yeah.
faster, and then she puts sticky tires on, and she breaks something, and she orders a stronger part, and then she breaks something else, and she orders a stronger
Right.
part. Before
And now
long,
you're
that
hooked.
car's
Now you're a drag
a
racer.
980 car. Bill Armstrong, one of the coolest dudes you'll ever meet. He just started a podcast with Rich Guido. They're both stick cars. They don't want to go faster than 850 because they don't want a bigger cage in the car. These cars are
Exactly.
driven to all these drag, like
Well,
Rich Guido
especially with
drives from Canada.
Rich in mind, who drives 3,500 miles from
Yeah,
the Great White North to Florida
that's right.
for a
That's
drag
right.
race event
In
in
a
his
in a
GTO.
1,500 horsepower, big single turbo, big block, stick shift GTO, pulling a trailer that he has to be prepared in case he breaks something between his 1,850 mile trip, or like Sick Week was 2,400 miles for him one way, I think.
Yeah.
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 It's
We interviewed Rich last year. We didn't get a real long interview with him. We got him during tech, but
Yeah.
that's an incredible story. That guy's
Yep.
unbelievable. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. I love him. I love Bill. Their new podcast is on Stick Shift Nation on YouTube. They literally put out their first episode today, so I'm excited to listen
Really?
to it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to check that one out.
I held off on listening to it until I'm going to be making my drive to Drag Week tomorrow. So
There you go.
Yep. So I'm hoping it's like this. It's an hour and a half or 2 hours.
A lot from you. You're more of an accomplished podcaster than I am, but we're working on it. I don't have the cool podcast room set up with the. I see you have a screen behind you now, but the wall.
Your backdrop is awesome. But hang on, let me pull this up. I don't usually show this on mine, but there's all my Hot Wheels still on the wall.
I was going to say the wall full of Hot Wheels that I'm used to. This is a work in progress. I'm sitting in the office here.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a day job also. I'm a project manager for a security company.
Ooh,
and
cool.
I work right here in this chair, and I also do all of my YouTube editing in this chair behind me. It'll change, but I figured I learned some things online, and the wall over my on this side here, I have you can't see it; it's pretty dark, but I have a Batman collection. I'm a Batman fan. I've got Hot Wheels, Batmobiles, and all kinds of things there. And then the whole wall behind me is, like you said, the dedication and the thing with the truck with your grandfather. My father was a career firefighter, and he was very proud of that. And actually, my wife is getting ready to retire. She's been an administrator for the local fire district here for 25 years. So this whole wall is nothing but old pictures and memorabilia and helmets and Hot Wheels.
How cool!
Fire trucks. So this is our firewall behind us here.
How cool!
One of these days, awesome. I'll have to turn the lights on. I'll have to give everybody a tour. I'm pretty proud of that. So, like you said, you weren't used to coming in and not being in charge of the stream here tonight.
I was trying to add myself. Yeah. It was great, man. It's great. Well, cool. Well, thank you.
So we're going to get all of your information to dragandrive.com. The Narcoleptics will get everything put down below here so everybody can find you and hopefully follow. And you've got some really cool stuff going on, and hopefully gain some more viewers, and hopefully gain some more people that don't know a lot of Drag and Drive. So there are probably a few out there, and
there's more than you think.
We're going to find them and
shirts, hats, hoodies, all that kind of stuff is good. But I just had a company build our print Race Car Friends decals. We're going to take those. I'll have those at Drag Week. I feel like that's a really good lead in for my out shot as we're doing interviews. And obviously, everything we talk about is race car friends. I have short videos, race car friends, everywhere,
Yep.
because
I
when
get a
you
kick out of
see,
those. Yeah, I get a
yeah,
kick
well,
out
I
of those.
appreciate that. When you see your friends out and about, you're like, oh man, I know that guy. I know that guy
Right.
from a drag and drive event.
And
So
even if you don't know him, if it's a fast, you can tell it's a hot rod and it's towing
yeah,
a trailer. He's a race car friend, whether you know him
that
or not.
yes, that dude is a race car friend for sure. That's for sure. Well, cool, man. Well, thank you very much. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. And like I said,
Yeah,
we're gonna put all your information below. Anyone who
cool.
wants to get contacted with Mike or get hooked up with him for any reason, all the information will be here. And we appreciate you being here tonight.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. This is basically probably going to be episode number 1. This won't be the last, so we'll get
No, it
back with
won't.
you. We'll definitely follow along as
Yeah.
some of these new events come along, and if nothing else, you and I will maybe we'll hook up. Maybe I'll help you out. Maybe we'll do some
Yeah.
stuff at Sick Week. I'll help you.
I'm in.
I'd love to be a pit interviewer at
Yeah,
Sick
yeah,
Week.
that'd be
We'll
great.
maybe
I'm in.
work something out.
I'm
Cool.
in. I want to do that for sure, and we'll see you then. And I'm sure we'll talk throughout the week. But what I would love to do is be back on maybe after the season ends and kind of go over some really cool stats throughout the year too. So.
Oh, absolutely. We'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that. So, all right, everybody, we appreciate it. Thanks for being under the hood with Races and Rods and Mike Narks, and we'll see you next time.